Alicia pulled her coat tighter around her body as the chilly autumn wind swept through the empty street. She glanced at the closed shop windows, the city lights reflecting in the puddles left by the rain. The heavy bag on her shoulder seemed to carry not just groceries, but the weight of her entire life. She sighed and quickened her pace, dreading what awaited her at home. When she finally unlocked the door, the familiar sound of silence hit her like a slap. The television was on, but Adam, as always, didn't even glance up to greet her. He was sprawled on the couch, his messy red hair and a half-empty beer in hand. Alicia placed the bags on the kitchen counter, trying to ignore the brief, disdainful look he shot her way. "You took your time," he commented dryly, without looking away from the program on the screen. "The line was long," Alicia replied softly. She had learned that using the right tone was essential to avoid unnecessary arguments. As she put the groceries away, her eyes lingered for a moment on a photo sitting on the living room shelf. It was from their wedding day, a day she once believed would mark the beginning of a life filled with love and companionship. Now, that photo felt like a cruel lie, a constant reminder of how everything had gone wrong. Alicia was 5 months pregnant, and the pregnancy only seemed to amplify Adam's disdain for her. He rarely touched her belly or asked about the baby. In fact, he seemed to avoid her even more since learning about the pregnancy. Some nights, he would leave without explanation, returning hours later reeking of alcohol and cigarettes. She felt something was wrong, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. It wasn't just Adam's coldness or his constant indifference. There was a mystery in his eyes, a kind of emptiness she didn't understand. Alicia tried not to dwell on it, focusing instead on taking care of herself and the baby. But the unease always found a way to creep into her thoughts. That night, as Adam slept on the couch, Alicia went to the baby's room. She turned on the soft light of the bedside lamp and ran her hand over the small toys she had carefully chosen. Sitting in the rocking chair, she closed her eyes and allowed herself a few moments of peace. She knew something had to change. She couldn't continue living like this, being treated as a burden, as if her existence was an inconvenience. But the question remained, how to change? And above all, how to protect her child from such a toxic environment? The following days brought more of the same. Adam remained distant, detached, while Alicia did her best to keep the house in order and take care of her health. Yet, every now and then, there were fleeting moments when she sensed something different. Small lapses of humanity in Adam, a distant look, a hesitant word that made her think he might be struggling with something he couldn't share. These moments, however, were rare and quickly overshadowed by his cold demeanor. And Alicia, physically and emotionally exhausted, began to wonder if she was imagining things, trying to justify behavior that simply couldn't be excused. On Friday night, as Adam left once again, without saying where he was going, Alicia decided she could no longer ignore her instincts. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and she needed to find out what it was. Not just for herself, but for the future of her child. As the sound of Adam's car faded into the distance, Alicia picked up her phone and began searching quietly. She didn't know exactly what she was looking for, but she was certain that wherever the truth was hidden, she had to uncover it. Alicia tried to go on with her life as best as she could, even under the shadow of Adam's disdain. The second trimester of pregnancy brought new challenges, both physical and emotional. Her growing belly was now evident, drawing pitying looks from neighbors and acquaintances, each spinning their own stories about the couple. Alicia avoided leaving the house as much as possible, but had to keep up with her medical appointments. One afternoon, as she waited to be seen at the clinic, she noticed a red-haired woman in elegant attire sitting in the far corner of the room. The woman looked vaguely familiar, but Alicia couldn't place where she knew her from. Their eyes met briefly, and the woman offered a polite smile, yet something in her expression made Alicia's heart race, as if it were a premonition of something bigger to come. When she returned home, Alicia found Adam sitting on the couch, typing furiously on his phone. He didn't look up when she entered, as usual. "You're late," he remarked coldly. "There was a delay at the clinic," Alicia replied, slipping off her shoes. Adam said nothing more, and the ensuing silence was unbearable. Alicia felt as though she was walking on eggshells in her own home. Unsure of how to break through the barrier, she began preparing dinner, trying to ignore Adam's oppressive presence in the living room. In the days that followed, Adam's behavior became even more erratic. He started coming home late, claiming to have work meetings. Alicia tried not to question him, but his frequent absences and the strange perfume lingering on his clothes stirred a growing unease. She tried to push the thoughts away, blaming her hormones for the mounting insecurity. One night, as Adam slept deeply, Alicia couldn't resist the temptation to check his phone. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the device and scrolled through the apps. There were recent messages from a contact saved only as J, but none of them contained clear information. However, the informal tone and affectionate words left Alicia suspicious. Who was J, and why had Adam never mentioned them? The next day, Alicia called her best friend, Sarah, seeking comfort. They hadn't seen each other much since Alicia got married, but Sarah was always a good listener. At a nearby cafe, they met, and Alicia poured out her heart. He doesn't love me, Sarah. I know that. But there's something else. Something he's hiding. Do you think he has another woman? Sarah asked, frowning. I don't know. Maybe. It's like he's living a completely different life outside this house. Like I'm just an inconvenience to him. Sarah held Alicia's hands, offering solidarity. You need to think about yourself and the baby. If he doesn't respect you, he doesn't deserve the privilege of being in your life. Sarah's words echoed in Alicia's mind for days. She knew Sarah was right, but leaving the marriage seemed like an insurmountable challenge. Where would she go? How would she support a baby on her own? I don't know. Maybe. It's as if he's living a completely different life outside this house. It's like I'm nothing more than a burden to him. Sarah held Alicia's hands, offering her support. You need to think about yourself and the baby. If he doesn't respect you, he doesn't deserve the privilege of being by your side. Sarah's words echoed in Alicia's mind for days. She knew her friend was right, but leaving that marriage seemed like an insurmountable challenge. Where would she go? How could she raise a baby on her own? One particularly lonely night, Alicia went up to the attic, a place she rarely visited. She needed a space to think and breathe, away from Adam's suffocating presence. Amid dusty boxes and old memories, she found a photo album Adam seemed to have hidden. Flipping through the pages, she saw pictures of Adam with friends she had never met. Some faces looked familiar, like the red-haired woman she'd seen at the clinic. Something felt off, like pieces of a puzzle that didn't fit. One photo, in particular, caught her attention. Adam and an unfamiliar man in a bar, both smiling in a way that seemed incredibly intimate. Alicia's heart raced. Who was this man? Why had Adam never mentioned him? As days passed, Alicia realized she needed answers. She didn't just want to save her marriage. She wanted to understand what was happening around her. Her intuition told her there was more beneath the surface than she could imagine. One night, she decided to follow Adam when he left late again. She took a taxi and, keeping a safe distance, watched him enter a bar downtown called The Lantern. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary place, but once inside, Alicia noticed it was different. The atmosphere was warm, with soft lighting and a welcoming vibe. But soon, she realized it wasn't just any bar. Most of the patrons seemed to know each other, and the conversations carried a sense of camaraderie she'd never experienced. From a distance, Alicia watched Adam. He was chatting animatedly with a group of people, including the same man from the photograph. A pang of pain and confusion hit her. Who was this man to Adam? What did they mean to each other? Before she could form a plan, Adam saw her. His eyes widened for a moment before he quickly slipped out the back door. Alicia followed him, but by the time she reached the deserted street, he was gone. All that remained was one certainty. She was closer to uncovering the truth. Now, she had to decide if she was ready to face whatever came next. The following nights were marked by restless tension. Alicia couldn't shake the image of Adam at the Lantern. He didn't mention seeing her there, but the atmosphere at home grew heavier. He avoided eye contact, and his absences became more frequent. To Alicia, it was clear he knew she suspected something. As the days passed, Alicia decided she couldn't live in constant uncertainty any longer. Her pregnancy was progressing, and the emotional toll was starting to affect her well-being. She needed answers, even if it meant confronting Adam directly. One evening, as Adam was watching TV, she walked into the living room and turned it off. He looked at her in surprise, but before he could protest, Alicia sat down in front of him and said, "We need to talk." Adam scoffed, as if he already knew what was coming. "About what now?" he asked, his voice laced with impatience. "About what's going on with you, about why you're so distant, and about who that man is that I saw you with at the bar." Adam froze for a moment. His expression, initially one of annoyance, turned darker. He avoided her gaze and rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture Alicia recognized as a sign of discomfort. "You've been following me?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I didn't have a choice, Adam. You don't talk to me, you barely look at me. How do you think I feel?" Alicia replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "I need to know what's going on. Why do you act like I don't exist? Why do you seem to hate our life together so much?" Adam remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he stood up and began pacing the room as if trying to organize his thoughts. I don't know how to say this, Alicia," he began, but she interrupted him. "Then just say it, because I can't keep living like this. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to our child." Adam stopped and turned to face her, his eyes shining with a mix of anger and desperation. "I never wanted this. I never wanted this life. I never wanted you." His words hit Alicia like a punch to the gut. She felt tears streaming down her face before she even realized she was crying. "What do you mean by that?" she managed to ask, her voice barely a whisper. Adam hesitated, running his hands through his disheveled red hair. "I don't know who I am, Alicia. I don't know what I want, but I know this life. This isn't for me." Before Alicia could respond, Adam left the room, leaving her alone with his cruel words echoing in her mind. She knew there was more to his behavior, something he wasn't ready to admit, but in that moment, all she could do was try to process the pain. The next morning, Alicia knew she needed help. She called Sarah and told her everything that had happened. As always, Sarah was her safe harbor. "You can't keep living like this, Alicia. You need to think about what's best for you and the baby. Maybe it's time for you to leave." Sarah's words echoed in Alicia's mind. She knew her friend was right, but the thought of leaving Adam, despite everything he had done, was terrifying. Still, she began to make plans. She saved some money and researched shelters for women in abusive situations. She didn't want to believe her life had come to this point, but she could no longer ignore the reality. Meanwhile, Adam continued acting strangely. He spent more time away from home and avoided any kind of conversation with Alicia. She knew he was hiding something, and her determination to uncover the truth only grew stronger. One of his absences, Alicia decided to investigate the attic again. Among the dusty boxes, she found an old agenda of Adam's. Flipping through the pages, she saw notes that left her even more intrigued. There were names and addresses she didn't recognize, along with little hearts drawn next to some entries. Who were these people, and why did Adam seem so connected to them? Alicia knew she was getting closer to the truth, but she also knew she needed to be prepared for whatever it was. With each passing day, she felt that her life was about to change forever. Finally, on a rainy night, Adam returned home earlier than usual. He was wet and looked exhausted. Without saying a word, he sat on the couch and buried his head in his hands. Alicia, sensing that this was the moment, sat next to him and said, "Adam, I can't live like this anymore. You need to tell me the truth, the whole truth." He lifted his eyes to hers, and for the first time in a long time, Alicia saw something that seemed like vulnerability. Adam took a deep breath and finally started to speak. His words would forever change the way Alicia saw him, how she saw her marriage, and most importantly, how she saw herself. Alicia knew that to confront Adam, she had to be ready for anything. The discovery the night before at the Lantern had turned her world upside down. She still didn't fully understand what was happening, but something inside her told her that the truth was closer than ever, and she was determined, This time, she wouldn't back down. The next morning, as Adam rushed out for work, Alicia noticed his expression was tenser than usual. He avoided looking her in the eyes and seemed distant, almost nervous. It was obvious he knew she was suspicious, and that only increased her determination. As soon as Adam left, Alicia began investigating more thoroughly. She went back to the attic and revisited the photo album. Every detail seemed to take on new meaning now. She went through the images, especially the one of the man at the bar, trying to find clues. Who was he? Why did he seem so close to Adam? The answers seemed to float in the air, almost within reach, but still out of her understanding. She decided to call Sarah again. Her friend had always been her rock in difficult times and might help her organize her thoughts. While waiting for Sarah to arrive, Alicia found herself going through more of Adam's things. She found an old notebook with some notes. Among scattered sentences about work and appointments, one note stood out. J. The lantern 8 p.m. The reference to the bar was clear, but who was J? When Sarah arrived, she found Alicia sitting on the couch, the notebook in her hands, and an expression of pure emotional exhaustion. I don't know what to do anymore, Sarah. I found this. Something is seriously wrong. And I feel like I'm being lied to in every way. Sarah took the notebook, read the note, and sighed. You're right to be suspicious, Alicia, but you need to be careful. Confronting Adam like this, without knowing exactly what he's hiding, could be dangerous. Alicia nodded. She knew Sarah was right. But the feeling of helplessness was consuming her. She needed to act, and she needed to act soon. That night, while Adam was once again absent, Alicia decided to go back to the lantern. She knew she was risking a lot, but she needed answers. She entered the bar and looked around. The same warm lights and cozy atmosphere were present. But now, there was a weight in her chest that made the place feel almost suffocating. She searched for the man from the photograph, but didn't find him. She sat in a discreet corner and ordered a soda, observing every movement around her. After almost an hour, Alicia was about to give up when she saw the man enter. He looked confident but relaxed, as if the place was his second home. Alicia gathered all her courage and approached him. Hello, she said, trying to sound casual. Do you have a minute? The man, clearly surprised, looked at her with curiosity. Sure, can I help you with something? My name is Alicia. I think you know my husband, Adam. The man's expression changed instantly. He tried to hide his discomfort, but Alicia noticed. Yes, I know Adam. Is he okay? That depends on your point of view. Alicia crossed her arms. I need to understand what's going on. Please, tell me who you are and what you mean to him. The man hesitated for a moment, clearly struggling to decide what to do. Finally, he sighed and extended his hand. My name is Jonathan. Adam and we've been friends for a long time. Alicia realized there was more to the story than Jonathan was willing to admit. Friendship is important. But what I'm seeing here isn't just friendship. Is it? She looked Jonathan straight in the eye, challenging him to be honest. Jonathan looked away, but didn't respond. The silence spoke louder than any word could. Alicia felt a mix of pain and confirmation in her heart. She was getting closer to the truth, but she knew it wouldn't be Jonathan who would reveal it. When she got home, she found Adam awake, sitting in the living room. He looked at her with a mix of guilt and anger. Where have you been? He asked, his tone harsher than ever. At the lantern, Alicia replied, crossing her arms. And you? Adam fell silent, clearly caught off guard. Alicia continued. Who is Jonathan, Adam? And why does he seem to know more about you than I do? The silence in the room was deafening. Adam finally stood up, running his hand through his hair in frustration. You wouldn't understand, he said, his voice low and almost inaudible. Then explain it to me. Because I'm tired of living in the dark. Adam looked at her for a long moment, as if deciding whether or not to speak. Finally, he just left the room, leaving Alicia alone once again. That night, Alicia cried like she hadn't in a long time. But amid the pain, she felt a spark of strength growing inside her. She knew the path to the truth wouldn't be easy. But she was more determined than ever to uncover what Adam was hiding. And, above all, she knew she had to do this for herself and for the child she was about to bring into the world. The next dawn brought a different weight to Alicia. As the sun streamed through the curtains, she felt something new. A quiet determination. There was something liberating in the truth Adam had revealed, no matter how painful. Now, the choice was hers. No longer a passive victim of his secrets, but a woman ready to decide her own destiny. Adam was sleeping deeply on the couch, exhausted from their conversation the night before. Alicia watched him for a few minutes, absorbing the image of a man who, despite all his mistakes and cruelties, was, at his core, at war with himself. She didn't forgive him, but she could no longer hate him. There was something deeply human in his pain, something that, in a way, reflected her own struggle for dignity and acceptance. She decided she needed some time alone. After making a quick coffee, she grabbed her purse and left for a walk. The city was waking up, and the fresh air seemed to clear her mind. Alicia knew she needed to think clearly about the next steps. She went to a nearby park, a place she used to visit before getting married. She sat on a bench, watching the children play and couples walk hand in hand. For a moment, she felt lost. But then she remembered something Sarah had said. "You deserve to be happy, Alicia. You and the baby." That was it. Her happiness and the babies had to be her priority. But how to start over? How to break free from the chains of a marriage built on lies and pain? When Alicia returned home, she found Adam awake, his face showing guilt. He seemed smaller, almost vulnerable. "We need to talk," she said bluntly. Adam nodded, looking relieved. He knew this moment was coming. "Adam, I don't know what the future holds for us, but I need to be clear. I can't continue living like this. It's not healthy for me, and it won't be healthy for our child." "Alicia, I understand. You have every right to want to get out of this. I just want you to know that, despite everything. I'm sorry, for everything, for not being the husband you deserved, for hiding who I am." She sighed, trying to control the wave of emotions flooding her. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. Adam looked at her, hesitating. "I'm going to get help. I need to understand who I am, accept it, and try to be a present father if you'll allow me." Alicia nodded. It wasn't a definitive answer, but it was a start. She knew forgiveness would be a long process, but her priority was the baby. It was in him that she would find the strength to move forward. The following weeks were a time of transition. Alicia found support in Sarah and even in the local community, which surprisingly became welcoming when they learned about the situation. She started planning her life as a single mother, researching financial assistance and ways to resume her career as a teacher. Adam, on the other hand, moved into a small apartment in the city. He began attending a support group for people facing similar challenges. Though the road was tough, he was determined to become a better person, for himself and for the child on the way. When the baby was finally born, Alicia felt a happiness she had never experienced before. Little Ethan was proof that, even in the toughest situations, something beautiful could emerge. Adam visited the hospital, nervous but visibly emotional as he held his son for the first time. "He's perfect," Adam whispered, tears in his eyes. Alicia watched the scene, feeling a mixture of emotions. There was still a long road ahead, but at that moment, she knew she had made the right choice. She had chosen herself, her peace, and her child's future. Months later, Alicia was in a park with Ethan, pushing the stroller as the sun shone in the blue sky. Adam appeared, bringing a small gift for the baby. He seemed more relaxed, more at peace with himself. Although their marriage had ended, there was something new between them: respect. "Thank you for letting me be part of his life," Adam said, genuinely grateful. "He deserves to have a present father." "And I deserve to move on," Alicia replied with a quiet smile. As Adam played with Ethan, Alicia felt that, finally, she was where she needed to be. Free from the shadows of the past, she had a bright future ahead. Alicia's story wasn't just about pain and overcoming. It was about the strength to rediscover herself and rewrite her own story.